Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Chocolate Travels. I'm here with Luisa from Luisa Abram Chocolate, and we're going to talk and learn all about her business. So, welcome, Luisa. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me, Joseph. Hello, everyone.
Let's jump right into it. I know that you're on your website, you mentioned about your background in chemistry and then going into chocolate there. So, how has chocolate making quenched your passion both for food, which you love, and chemistry?
So I've always been a little geeky around the kitchen,
Mm,
and when I was in what 2013, I got a book from my parents called The Elements of Dessert.
mm,
And in this book, my favorite thing to do is like cook desserts to my families, my friends, and have everyone just, like together around a table and enjoying a good meal.
mm,
And this book had amazing recipes, but all of the recipes were so hard to first find the ingredients here in Brazil,
mm,
and second to really follow the recipe and end up with a good product. I end up I ended up only making chocolate from that book.
okay.
So in the millions of recipes over there, just this like the chocolate gave me so much work,
Mm,
trouble to make it that I only stuck with the chocolate.
oh,
And
interesting.
the chemistry behind the chocolate is very interesting, behind the cocoa butter crystals,
Mm,
and really understanding the tempering
mm,
and the cooling part, and also all that really constructs a good chocolate, a good mass. So the amount of fat that you're putting in, the quality of the ingredients that you're using, everything matters.
mm,
Um, the equipment that you are processing your chocolate, everything matters. And for me, that was a whole new world. I had no idea back then that chocolate could be so mesmerizing.
okay.
And it really sucks you in in a way that you try to like crawl backwards, but you can't.
That's a good way to
um,
put it.
and yeah, it was really chocolate really just enchanted me.
Hmm.
The Amazon really
There's so
enchanted.
many little details that you like to learn, like discover and understand. It's very complex in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first thing that really called like my attention, my immediate attention, was the fact that cacao was native to the Amazon,
Mm,
and I have never heard of this information prior to
hmm,
that moment. So I was just really, like, oh, okay, I wanna know the Amazon. Like I've never been. I'm
mm,
Brazilian, so I might as go. And then from there on, um, it was like the first years was really like discovering the Amazon, discovering what fermentation is all about, and then the drying part, what everything has to follow a certain protocol, otherwise you're not gonna have good enough beans.
mm,
And then the years went by, and I was in a factory, a little one, and I really started to pay attention in every single step, roasting, and then the the part that you grind the chocolate, and then the
mm,
part that you um, make the recipe, like put like the percentages that you put in, and
mm.
trying all the different ingredients, like all the different types of sugar and what does it do with your mats. And it is very interesting. Until this
Okay.
day, I find myself really paying attention to that side, that really the normal customer, the normal chocolate lover doesn't really
Mm,
um, know that it's there, but it is.
right. Right. After all this, and you sort of decided, okay, this is sort of what I want to do. I want to start a business. It seems like it became a family business. Is that correct? How did it become a family business? How did you get your family to agree to do this? And would you say it's easy or difficult to work with your family every day?
Well, so the part that chocolate sucks you in, it really is, and it was like that for my family. So
Mm,
I was the one that originally saw the recipe, saw that it was an interesting thing to do, and then I showed to my dad, and he immediately was like, let's do it, because he loved experimenting. And
mm,
he, at that time, he wanted to go to the Amazon as well, and he would never let me go alone, because at that time I was 22
mm,
and we had no connection whatsoever in the Amazon.
mm.
So I was, so he really supported me from the get go.
Okay.
And then my sister came along 2 years later. She's actually a lawyer, a taxes lawyer, and
Mm,
she was so bored in her work that I was just like, you know what, like, just quit and come spend a couple of months here, and like, help me a little bit.
mm,
We just, at that time, we had added a big supermarket here in Brazil. So, like, I was working alone, and I said to her, like, I need some help, like, even if it's just like to wash the dishes. I know that you don't, like, you you are not like the best with chocolate. And then she was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then she's with me until now.
okay.
And from 2016.
Wow.
um, and then but, like, I don't get me wrong, she has no place in the tempering machine, like, no way. Like, she can get chocolate in the ceiling easily,
Really?
multiple times.
Is your dad more does he like to cook? Is he in the kitchen a lot?
He is in the kitchen a lot
Yeah.
with me, but he's not at the factory a lot.
Mm,
He is actually the only one that has another job. Like, he
okay.
has a real job, as you would say. He's in finance
Okay,
and
okay.
stocks.
Yeah.
He's a commodity trader.
Mm,
What, like, he helps us a lot with cacao. And, oh, the prices are going up, the prices are
yeah,
going down.
yeah.
But,
No, I think
like,
it's good between him and your sister. And from experience I've had with people in the culinary industry, it's really helpful to have people that understand numbers and finance and that. Very, very helpful.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because little do you know, it's not all about chocolate,
yeah,
like, it's about having a good admin.
yeah.
You have to have a good, like, people that you can really trust, and that's why family
Mm,
is good, it's a plus.
yeah,
People that you trust to really be able to focus in what you know to do. And for me, that is chocolate.
mm,
And I don't thrive in like finance things and calculating
yeah,
everything, but I really do. Um, I can make a really good recipe.
yeah.
So, and match the flavors and all of that. And then my mom came in like 2 years ago. She used to work for IT in a multinational company, and she got tired, and her grandkids were on the way, so she's like, okay, I think it's time to retire. So she retired from that other job, and then she came to work with us. And yeah, I family can be a wrestle. Like we fight a lot, we yell a lot. And actually, like if you really stop and think, you only really like lose your mind with the people that you most know. Because
Mm,
why are you gonna lose your mind with someone that you don't really know?
right.
So sometimes we drive ourselves a little bit mad, but in the next moment, we
Because
don't hold grudges.
you're more emotionally involved with your family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, but we don't hold grudges at all. Like not even for a second.
Yeah.
Um,
You get it out,
business,
you get mad,
business.
and then you let it go.
Yeah, sometimes we are like having a barbecue lunch in on a Sunday, and we are like talking about our kids, and then a subject from the factory comes in, and we fight a little bit, and we yell a little bit, but then we end up like hugging and kisses, and
Right, right.
like it's
That's
it's
good.
fine. It's not.
Yeah.
Um, we've learned to deal with frustrations.
Do you think you would have been, because I know you also mentioned in your bio that you were trying to get into medicine at some point too. Thinking back now, do you think you would have been as happy and satisfied if you went into medicine than you are today in chocolate?
You know, I am definitely more free than I would be.
Mm,
Like that's a hard one to answer. Sometimes I do think like, oh, if I was a doctor, would I be happy? Which area would I have gone? Like this stuff.
hmm
But those thoughts really don't really cross my mind for a long time because I
mm.
have so many problems here and so I really don't know. it's
Mm,
it's a hard one to say.
okay.
Maybe if I am born again, I don't know.
In another life.
I don't know. People
Okay.
always want you to say no. I am definitely more happy where I am
Right,
now, but
right.
yes, like
You're being
like
realistic. Yeah, I mean,
the
there has its
honest thing to say
challenges
is
and
that I really don't know.
yeah, yeah. No, fair enough. So when you decided to venture into chocolate making, did you think using wild cacao was the only way to go? Was cultivated cacao not really an option for you? Because you seem to stick to sourcing out more rare wild types cacao.
This thing in 2014, the market for specialty um, beans here in Brazil was so little, and people in the industry would say awful things about Brazilian cacao.
Mm,
And really, like, I understand it now because I understand the history that we had behind having to plant whatever because we had more than 1 million jobs that were just like in the air with witch's broom.
right.
So I understand now a little bit of like the now that I am in this industry for like what 9 years. So I do understand now, and at the time, really was all about finding that unicorn.
Mm,
We were at the time in 2014, we were seeing a lot of startups coming from the Silicon Valley, and they would have like this huge amount of growth in little time, and they were really like unicorns.
mm,
So I was trying to find my unicorn. I was trying to find something that would differentiate me,
mm,
and I thought that going in a way that no one would think and was really what would differentiate me.
Yeah.
Brazil is a country that really doesn't allow cacao coming from abroad. So we didn't have like the US had. Like if you go to, I don't know, my like letterpress, for instance, that time they had like what, five, six different origins. And
Right.
when I mean origins, it's countries,
Right.
different countries.
Yeah.
Here in Brazil, we didn't have that. We didn't have that. We had the only option that we had was using cacao from Bahia, or like going to the wild, going to the Amazon.
Mm.
So that was really the why I went there. Like I was trying to find my unicorn. I was trying
Right.
to
You wanted
differentiate myself.
Right. So you wanted to stand out, amongst the crowd of the bean to bar makers, and you also wanted something special within Brazil. You didn't want to just use Bahia cacao, which maybe had more of a typical flavor. You wanted something different, and you didn't have the option to go buy Tanzania or whatever type of cacao that you wanted.
I tried to, like, I got in contact with suppliers from the Ecuador, and they were the first ones that really brought this information to my attention. They were like,
Mm,
"Well, I'm sorry, I would love to sell you some beans, but I can't.
mm,
The
mm.
beans are not going to be accepted when they arrive in Brazil." And I'm
Right.
like, "What?" So then I went to search and
Is that more to protect the Brazilian market, or is that more to protect environment and like cross contamination? What's the main
I think
purpose
it's a
there?
little bit of both
Mm,
nowadays. Back then, I think it was because of witch's broom and how everyone feared with Monilia and having like the same history repeating itself again.
right.
But now that we are like more like 9 years from then, um, we still have a little bit of witch's broom here and there. Of course, witch's broom, it's never gonna vanish from the surface,
Right.
but for sure, people want to protect their farms, I
Right.
guess.
And in a way, it's good because it's forcing, for instance, there's a lot of bean to bar Brazilian makers now, and that's forcing you guys, like you did, to seek out pockets of that really good cacao that maybe you would have never done if it was easy to access all this other cacao, right? So,
Yeah,
and how do you
yeah.
define wild cacao?
Well, wild cacao is, well, just to know that if you're dealing with wild cacao or not, you have to send samples to the USDA. So
Okay.
they are the only ones that are gonna be able to tell you if you're working with something truly wild or not. Because they have genetic testings and they will know, like if you are dealing with something pure, or if something, they have other genes which
Feels
would,
crossed. Hmm.
yeah, which would like tell us that that is not a pure cacao.
Mm,
So for one, finding out if the material is wild or not is a task, because you have to go to the place, get samples, GPS data, like
hmm.
catalog all the samples, and then submit into a system in Brazil to say, hey, here are these samples. I collected these samples from this location. This is the data. I want to send them to USDA. And then the USDA from over here, there, actually there, they send us a document saying that they're only gonna use that material for science, um,
Mm,
and they're gonna destroy it
mm,
later.
mm.
And then we can send the material and they do all the analysis. So in the real geeky world, this is how you define what is wild or not.
Okay.
Um, but I have gone to different areas, for instance, that I know that the material there is wild, but as I get to know the people there, I get to know the story behind the place. And for instance, Casipore, I know that there is a pure amelonado. I know that we have tests. Um, USDA even say that we are really, really close to the birthplace of amelonado
Mm.
because it's so, so pure. But when you go there, you find the forests like really caves of cacao forest,
Mm.
caves. like,
Interesting.
you would yell and it would echo
Huh.
in the cacao.
Wow.
So we know that that's not natural.
Hmm.
That can't be natural. Like I've never saw this anywhere else. So I know that in that location the Jesuits were really present, and they would plant cacao to really medicine. It was a medicine. Like cocoa butter was a medicine at the time,
Yeah.
and so I know that like 500 years ago, a lot of people planted cacao in those areas, and once they were gone, the forest developed over there, but it's only cacao trees.
Right.
So is it wild? Is it not wild? Like it's
Yeah.
a dilemma. Like the genetics shows me that it's wild, but when I go there, I know that it must have some human hand over here. A while ago, of course, because the trees are so so old. But yeah, I think
That's a really
um,
good point because other researchers have mentioned that too, that, cacao, if it's native to northern Amazon, people moved it around. They moved it to Venezuela, they moved it up into Central America. And so they've moved patches. And so if they moved it 3,000 years ago, you know, maybe they crossed something back then. Today it seems wild, but is it really wild?
this is why you
When,
have to have the genetics
right.
testing to
Yeah.
support it.
Yeah.
And I know that, well, thank God that the Jesuits didn't introduce any other cacao from other places, because
Mm,
I know for a fact that the material there is almost 100% amelonado. So I know that whatever they planted was the material within the area.
mm,
They didn't bring
right.
it
Right.
outside.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is the type of information that you can get when you have the data for a genetic test.
Right. Right. Interesting. But I guess it doesn't really matter. In some ways, it doesn't like if you're making really good chocolate, it doesn't matter too much whether it's a wild or some type of cultivar, right? It
Does it
matters
taste
more
good?
exactly the taste, the flavor, right? So that's what's important at the end of the day. But it's interesting for people to understand when they hear this wild cacao, what does that mean? So now they have an idea. Um, and you mentioned a little bit earlier about the view on Brazilian cacao. So even today, Brazilian cacao is not um, regarded as very interesting. It's not revered as much. Why do you think this is? What would you, if somebody who doesn't know too much about bean to bar chocolate, they don't hear too much about Brazil cacao, what would you say to them to understand why that is?
Well, Brazil,
Because you mentioned
Brazil
it's the heartland, right? So why is it not
Brazil
more?
is a country of big things,
Hmm.
big crops.
Hmm.
So in the 80s, before witches broom, we had we were like the first or second world producer. We don't export a lot because we have a large internal market. So everything that we produce, we consume.
Hmm.
But at the time, we could export a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, But then Witch's Broom came, and it was really so sad. It was really sad. A lot of people still have that until this day
Wow.
from that time, and people were desperate to find some some kind of seed that would be more resistant to witch's broom. And at the time, no one would say anything about cacao flavor or single
Mm.
origin, or like
Right. That wasn't an issue
specialty
back then. Yeah.
food. That wasn't a thing back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
So they did what they were supposed to do. They went and they find something that was a little bit more resistant, and then they planted a lot. Boom.
Right.
They like filled all the farms with this different genetics, and then um, came the era where we are now, that flavor is, it's all about flavor.
Mm.
um, it's all about like good fermentation, a good bean, a good ferment, and a good drying, and also like a, a good recipe and stuff. But people were more focused on the flavor, and then they found out, like maybe like 20 years later, that the seeds that they planted were not flavor, had no flavor profile.
Right.
And so from 20 years
Mm.
they grew this certain cacao, and 20 years is a long time. People are started saying bad things about Brazilian cacao,
Right.
because all of the cacao um, prior to like within the cacao with witch's broom tastes awful.
Mm.
It's so astringent.
Mm.
It's just awful. And then we were, a little bit that we were exporting was this kind of cacao. So
Mm.
people
Mm.
would assume that Brazilian cacao was no good.
Right. And I guess if people from other countries, the States, wherever, were looking for, in the bean to bar world, maybe they're looking for new cacao, they come to Brazil. The really good cacao, like you said, is sort of wild. It's harder to find. So the one they encounter is this one, right? They don't encounter the other one because they don't know
Yeah.
where to look for it. Yeah.
And it takes approximately 3 to 5 years for a new tree to start to produce
Right.
fruits. So so you have a delay. Yeah, you have a time that people know that what they're selling is not no good, so
Mm.
they start planting um, good flavor beans, but they have to wait
Right.
for 3 more long years.
Hmm.
So I think Brazilian cacao will have a different imprint in the world,
Mm.
maybe like 5 to 10 years from
Mm.
now, because people are now understanding that they have to plant good flavor beans.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
That's
I think there's still space to change that mindset.
mm.
Like, I don't know if you ever read Rowan Jacobson's article on Volcker. Like, he wrote 10 years ago. It was actually 11 years ago, 2012, I think.
Okay.
He wrote an article when the Cru Sauvage from Volcker surfaced. It was the first wild bean ever to be sourced and to produce a single origin bar
Mm.
for Falkling was producing at that time, I think,
Mm.
and 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 so Rowan, in that article, he talks really trash about Brazilian cacao.
Mm.
And then 10 years later, he came back to see what Volker was doing, and that part that he talked bad about Brazilian cacao, he came to Brazil. He came to one of my origins, and I can say that he redeemed himself. So if you are watching and you want to learn a little bit more about, just go to where you listen to your podcasts, and there is a really nice podcast called Wild Chocolate.
Mm,
8 episodes telling about, well, Volker's story,
mm,
and also my a little bit of mine. So
okay,
yeah, that's a good listen.
good, good. Thank you. Those who grow your cacao in the different regions that you visit, do you come back and do you give them the chocolate made from their cacao? And if so, how do they respond to it? What do they think about it?
They will always think that the cacao that they produce is the best one in each and every origin that I go. Like I went with 6 origins, 6 different origins. I take chocolate to all of the origins every time I go, and they always say like, "Oh, this is the best. This is the best." Like, and I know there is some like nostalgia and proud of
Of course.
the work they're doing. So um, I think I think I still want to like maybe put a video on every single person from origin that I
Yeah.
give the chocolate, just to like register their reaction.
Yeah.
So
No, that would be
it's
amazing.
very good. It's very nice. It's
Do these people, before you kind of were working with them, what did they do with their cacao? Did they make their own kind of chocolate or did they just eat it?
No,
What did they do?
no, no. They had no idea how to make chocolate,
Mm.
and and
Did they
the
eat
cacao,
chocolate from other sources in those areas?
Nestle,
So
the
that's what
big
they
ones,
did. Yeah.
yeah. They only knew chocolate from the big ones,
Mm.
and now that they like try our chocolate, they're like, but I eating chocolate? Is this chocolate? What, like
Mm.
they become a little confused.
Mm.
Like, what is chocolate? So
Interesting.
we have to explain to them that, well, big companies, they do this, and then us, we do a little bit
Right,
different.
right.
And, like
Yeah. But it's
it's a
amazing
whole,
to have that feedback directly to the farmers too.
of course, it's very important. It's very
So
important.
they
It's
see what they're doing. They understand what it is they're doing. Yeah.
yeah. And also like going back and really establishing a relationship, that is very important.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they really appreciate um, the bars that I handle to them, like, oh, this bar came all the way from Sao Paulo, like it
Mm.
crossed Brazil 2 times, because it crossed in a bean shape, and then it crossed in a chocolate shape. So like they really appreciate.
Yeah, that would be fun if you did some videos on their reaction. That'd be really cool. What is the general consensus from your point of view in general in Brazil? I mean, maybe it's different regionally, maybe in Sao Paulo. How do people today, how do they view chocolate there? Is it all sweet milk chocolate? What do they think of craft chocolate? Do you still have to educate a lot of Brazilians, or do a lot of Brazilians today understand this idea of craft chocolate?
Brazil has a sweet tooth, and I'm including myself on it. um, uh, so
What are those
Brazilian,
chocolates you guys make with the condensed milk? Oh, those little balls where you mix the condensed milk and
yeah,
what is that
yeah,
called? Yeah,
brigadeiro,
brigadeiro.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Those are sweet.
very sweet. We love them.
Yeah.
Well, I think the nostalgia plays a little bit on there, because we have been eating that since we were kids.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of different moments, I think, different memories. Um, but Brazilian market in general doesn't really know craft chocolate. We are in a big city. Sao Paulo is where everything happens. Is where so people here know a little bit more,
Mm,
but I cannot generalize and put the whole Brazil in
right.
just Sao Paulo's bucket. I can't do that. So, um, as much as here in Sao Paulo, people know is where the foodies, the Brazilian
Mm,
foodies are.
mm,
Um, is where all the nice events, food events, take place.
mm,
So um, I would say that we have a long way to go still with Brazilian market for
right.
sure. Teaching
Educating.
them
Hmm.
and really like spreading the bean bar world.
Mm. Since you started, obviously there's probably been a lot of changes in the past 9, 10 years. What how has the craft chocolate scene in Brazil changed since you started? Either better or for worse? How have you seen the changes develop since you started making chocolate?
For sure, it changed for the better. For sure,
Okay.
we have still um, the the price barrier is still very high. We are a third world country, so not everyone is gonna have access to peanut butter chocolate. That's a fact, and
Right.
I cannot sugarcoat that.
Mm-hmm.
So um, peanut butter companies are growing,
Mm-hmm.
but they grow in a very slow pace.
Mm-hmm.
And
And why is that?
because they just have to educate people and they have to really like in allure the customer to come,
Mm,
and also having a business is not that easy. Like you cannot only have a good product, you have to have good product, good aesthetic, good Instagram, good prices, good relationship with your suppliers. Like it takes a lot
mm,
to have like a solid
yeah.
business.
Yeah, a lot of
And
people still think if I make an amazing product, it'll just sell itself, but it just doesn't work that way today.
so in the first in the first moments of our chat, I compared us to unicorns. Now I I am more inclined of saying that we are camels. Like we survive and
Mm,
thrive to adversities. So in these 9 years, we had a lot of them, like flooding, you
mm,
name it, we
mm,
had.
mm,
You name it. So I think having a business is like having a kid. It's not only you. You
mm,
have to have support from those around you. You have to have a good team. You have to be fast in your decisions. You have to have a lot of characteristics, and sometimes it's just too much.
mm,
Really, like Joseph, if it were just myself, I wouldn't. Never, never. Like my family helps me a hell of a lot.
mm,
Like
mm.
I cannot
Yeah.
do anything without them. Like I know that the company and the chocolate names is mine, but I am like, trust me, I am just the tip of the iceberg. I am just, sometimes I say like we got the name wrong. Sometimes I say like it shouldn't only be just one person showcased.
Should we just be called Abram, maybe?
Yeah,
Abram chocolates.
yeah. Um, but for different reasons, we stick to Luisa Abram.
Yeah.
But
But you
you
brought it
know,
all together. If it wasn't for you, they wouldn't
yeah,
have thought about it at all, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and what are
um,
some challenges that you face early on, and are they the same today?
oh yeah, oh yeah, we evolve. If I were having the same problems I had 9 years ago, I would be like, I don't know, like, no, 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 no. They
Yeah.
have to, we have to evolve and find the solutions for the problem that we once had, and try to face the problems that we will have in the best way possible
Mm.
with the most experience acquired in this whole past years. um, One
So
of
what do
my
you face today then? What are some of those challenges?
Well, today I find very, how can I say this? I know that everyone in the industry knows me, like, oh, Luisa, Luisa, everyone knows. But outside of the industry, our brand is not that big.
Mm.
So, one of the challenges that we have is really delivering the brand to new buyers, new customers.
And
So,
can I ask, what do you think the reason is? Why is it your brand is not as well known outside of the craft world?
um, I think it's because, for one, the quantity that we used to make, and now that we have more capacity, we are going for these
Mm.
new markets, bigger markets, and for sure, people are afraid of our supply chain. People are afraid that we are not gonna have enough cacao to deliver or something
Uh,
like that. But like,
mm,
we are 9 years in like almost a decade,
mm,
so we have experience in what the Amazon can bring us.
mm.
So we had chocolate throughout this whole entire 9 years.
Right. You
Like,
never
we
ran
never
out.
got out of chocolate.
Yeah.
So, really, like, getting the word out there.
So I guess it's
Like,
hard as a smaller manufacturer to convince bigger buyers. They're more hesitant with you. Is that it?
and also, I think one of the things that we opted was not having a shop. I don't have a shop.
Right. That's true.
Mm,
You still don't
yeah,
have one, huh?
yeah, I don't have a shop. I am a closed factory. And one of the things that people always say to me, like, "Oh, you have to have a shop. You have to have a shop." It's a whole nother business having a shop,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Like you
know.
wouldn't
So
you wouldn't be able to be there. You would have to hire other people to be there for you.
yeah. So I really love to have a shop, because all of the bean bar crab chocolate shops that I went were just like mesmerizing, amazing. But I'm like, am I gonna be able to succeed in that way? Like, I don't know. I'm still not
Mm,
convinced enough.
right.
Um, but I know
Because it's
I
going to be a lot of work, and then at the end of the day, you might really not make much at all, right?
yeah, yeah.
But it
Because
does help with marketing too when they see you have a place.
when it's a store, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sometimes people Google it, like random people Google just Luisa Abram in on Google, and they're like, oh, this is the address, and they come here to the factory,
Mm,
and I don't have structure to have anyone here.
right.
So I'm like, oh, hey, like, I do sell chocolate, but I don't like advertise that we sell chocolate in our factory. It's
Right.
not a
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
thing.
And I
Sometimes
guess
I
you
will
don't
go
do
like enter the door like all
cover it up.
you know,
Yeah.
people look at me and I'm like, this is a factory. They're
And you
like,
don't do
oh,
tours or anything like that, I guess.
hmm?
You don't do tours or anything like that.
No,
No.
we
Yeah.
don't do tours.
Yeah.
We have I don't make chocolate only for my company. I make chocolate, like, I make private label.
Oh, okay.
and I have other clients.
Hmm. Hmm.
So having all like random people seeing my clients'
Mm,
production, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with it.
yeah,
My
yeah,
clients, I would have to for sure let my clients know that I'm having people while in their production. So I'm
yeah.
like, it's better to stay that way.
Fair enough. And what would you say is the core of your business today? What are you trying to achieve? What are some of those future goals?
My future goal is to have an American website and sell directly to the American
Mm,
consumer,
mm,
um, establishing a more solid relationship with my US client for sure.
mm, mm.
For
You
sure.
need some of your family members to move to the States and then they can take care of it there.
Well, I already have all like a lot figured it out. Like a priori is really gonna help me
Mm,
fulfilling all my orders and
mm.
stuff. But I still have to get the chocolates, get the product.
So in general, this is sort of a big general question, but what improvements or changes do you think need to happen to help grow the craft chocolate industry? What's standing in the way of growing this sector of fine craft chocolate?
People need to spread the word that cheap chocolate has someone along the way is being explored. Like people need to
Exploited.
know
Hmm.
exploited. Yeah, people need to know that.
Hmm.
People don't know like
And what about
that
if they say, well, I buy, it says it's fair trade or this trade or whatever. Is that satisfy
label
that?
labels. You can buy labels.
Hmm.
You know, you can always like bend the rules and
Hmm.
do it your way or do it the best way that will get more attention to your brand.
Right. Yeah.
What I believe is that people need to know that chocolate is they need to stop associating chocolate with candy and
Hmm.
with like cheap things. It's not only sugar.
Yeah.
Well, not at least not ours.
Right.
It's not only sugar,
Yeah.
and we can't really put a price tag that low on it. Like you can't.
Especially considering, if you compare it, people compare it to coffee or wine, where there's a lot of work involved. But then chocolate is so much more work because wine or coffee, like once you roast the beans, you grind it up, you make your coffee. Whereas chocolate, you have to temper it, you have to package it, you have to, there's a lot more labor involved. So it's a very
I
involved.
say that chocolate is an affordable luxury.
Mm,
So you you won't find any top-notch wines in the world for $20, but you will find good, like top quality bars
yeah,
for 15,
that's a
like
really good point.
18
Yeah,
tops, you know?
yeah.
So,
And also the
um,
way people consume chocolate has to change, right? You're not supposed to eat that $20 bar in 5 minutes, right?
um, I used to say that we have to create the ritual for cacao. So people have rituals to consume wine, good wine. So they put it in the decanter, they let it breathe. People go to coffee shops to have really nice coffees and brewed coffees. Um, People go to, you know, um, even to a bar to have a craft beer. They go
Yeah.
to. So this is a ritual. It's something that you do with your friends. You don't do it alone. Because if you're gonna eat like a 12 bar, like a big bar of chocolate, you're gonna eat it alone. you're not gonna share. Like, have you ever saw like people sharing chocolate that the way that they share, I don't know, a
Right.
beer in a bar, like,
Well, that's
but
exactly what Trevor from Matista was saying. He's like, you sit around and you guys share a bottle of wine at dinner. Why do we not sit around and share this chocolate, before or after dinner too? That's a really good point. We have to create that mentality for customers. This is the wonderful chocolate, and this is how you should enjoy it, you know?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good
And
point.
having good chocolate with like a lot of people is really nice. Like each and every one of them will find a different note, a different
Yeah.
like aspect of it, and sharing this really builds your flavor library.
Library. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good thing.
Hmm.
I always do with my family, and but I think we started doing this because we are on chocolate, so
Right. Right. So we
we are
need
biased.
to share this idea with everyone else. This is
Yeah,
how you enjoy chocolate. This is how you should think about chocolate. And
yeah,
yeah, we're really, you're selling a product that people don't even, you're not creating a product that people already want. You're creating a product and then you have to convince them you want this as well. So that's a lot of work. It's a very challenging industry.
and also like wine, like the bottle is really important. The like the tag is really important. Chocolate is also like that, but because you don't really see the chocolate, like you see the liquid of the wine,
Mm,
that plays also a little bit.
interesting. Interesting. I wonder if more people will put more images of what the chocolate looks like on the bar too in the future. That's another
Yeah.
idea. Good, excellent. And so, how can people connect with you, your chocolate? Where do you ship around the world? Where can people around the world find your chocolate?
Well, Instagram is always the best way to connect, especially coming from abroad. Um, People in the US, they can find the chocolates in Caputo's Market website. And if you want to carry our chocolate to in your store or your little shop, you can get in contact with A Priori. They are the ones that distribute our chocolate, um, and we don't ship worldwide, but A Priori does.
Okay.
So that's a good way to go.
Hmm.
And if you are in Brazil, please connect with me. Maybe I have a trip scheduled to go to the Amazon, and you can join me.
Oh,
And please listen to the podcast because it really shows what adversities we go through.
do you want to mention that
While
again? The name of the podcast?
it's called Wild Chocolate.
Okay, excellent. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Luisa. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. And it was really interesting to learn and to listen to everything that you had to say. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Joseph,
All the best with your business.
for having me. Thank you for all the listeners. And maybe we will see each other in Seattle.
Maybe
Maybe.
one
No.
day. It's hard for me to get out these days, but hopefully we'll get to see each other again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Bye.
All the
Thank
best.
you.
Download the free Bean to Bar app to connect with incredible chocolate makers from around the world. Also, be sure to visit beantobarworld.com, your portal for all things fine chocolate, virtual tastings, free learning resources, research, and much more. Subscribe to the newsletter to stay in touch and donate to the free app and free resources here. Contact me for any chocolate related questions you may have.